I'm your host, Sarah Baus, and welcome to Attainable Podcast.
Check out the setup. Like, if you're not watching a video, guys, go head to the YouTube and check this out. I am in studio in New York City and feeling pretty freaking sassy. And I've got a guest on that we've been trying to get together for months.
So
And then
long.
and I let them know. I was like, hey, I'm going to be in town. And so we're getting together. So, guys, big warm welcome for Sarah Liddy of the Completely Fucking Clueless podcast.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having
I'm
me.
so happy to have you. I'm
Yeah.
sad that Audrey couldn't come.
Yes,
But
she's not feeling that well.
Yes, but I'm so happy that you're here. Thank you
Me
so much for
too.
coming on. Thank you for coming in studio. And I
Yeah.
literally texted them I think last week and was like, I'm gonna be there, so can I interrupt your lives and we
Yeah.
record?
When it happens, when you can get it together, I'm like, let's do it. Especially I love talking with people in person. And when Audrey and I started the podcast, there was a lot of online interviews, Zoom interviews.
Yeah.
And look, you got to do it. But I absolutely hate it.
Yeah.
I'd rather be in person with somebody. It's so much easier to talk and have a flowing conversation that way. So yeah, I was so happy to do it.
Yeah, and we just recorded on their podcast, so definitely go check that out. But we were talking about how I'm a social butterfly.
Yeah.
It's almost like an illness. The podcast is 100% my excuse to meet people.
Oh yeah.
It's the best. You want to get in with somebody, there's somebody on the internet that you've been fangirling over, invite them on the podcast. And
literally
in person, I could only imagine. This is great.
Yeah, I do the same thing with CFC. When I remember our first year and trying to figure out guests, I would always think about who do I want to talk to and meet? Sure, you want to give your audience value and everything, but I always there's people out there on TikTok and other forums that I would want to meet. And I remember when we first started asking people to be on the podcast, we were shocked by how many
people said yes.
Yeah.
I'm like, are you kidding?
I'm like, what? You want to be on my podcast? And it's so cool. Honestly, that was the best piece of advice that we got starting off was from another podcaster. And I was like, how do you get guests? You got great guests. And she's like, I honestly just ask them. Most times out of 10 people will say yes.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about you guys starting the podcast.
Yeah.
But I want to go backtrack a little bit.
Yeah.
Because and talk about your career switch. And
for sure.
It's very relatable, of course, guys. We talk about this all the time on career switches. You guys know my story and that hot shit that was. So can you talk let's go to the beginning, if
Sure.
you will. Give us the journey of where you started and where you are now.
Yeah. So when I was 7 years old, I went to see.
Oh my God, we're starting at 7.
We're literally starting at 7. The story starts at 7. I went and saw the original cast of Wicked. Yes, with Idina Menzel and Kristen Chenoweth. And so that was my introduction to theater and Broadway and performing. And after that show, I would not stop singing the cast album. And one day my mom came to me and was like, hey, you're a pretty good singer. Why don't you take voice lessons? And that kind of launched me into a performance and theater career, extracurricular, whatever you want to call it, starting at 7 years old. And so since I was 7, I've trained in voice, acting, and dance, less on the dancey side.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, singing has always just been a huge passion of mine. And so did it throughout middle school and high school. My senior year of high school, I auditioned for 22 music theater programs, 22 colleges.
Oh my God.
Yes, it is really, really competitive to get into music theater programs. It's
really
as hard as getting into an Ivy, if harder.
Yeah.
Because each music theater class is about 20 kids. So it's thousands of kids auditioning for 20 spots.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it is really competitive. People start preparing their junior year, with audition material training. It is crazy. And I really didn't even know how crazy it was until I was in the midst of it. And then I didn't get into a program that I really wanted to go to. And I had heard of gap years. And so took a gap year and luckily got more time to train in the city. And then I ended up getting into programs that I really wanted to go to. Headed down to North Carolina. I went to Elon University and got my BFA in music theater.
Wait, where in North Carolina is that?
It's so what is it called? It's Raleigh Durham is 45 minutes from it. I'm not because you said Birmingham, Alabama before, I'm thinking
Yeah, just
Birmingham,
yeah. Burlington. Got it.
Burlington, it's right next to that.
Yeah, down in my area.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I went down south, which I wasn't really expecting, but Elon's such a beautiful school.
I've heard. I didn't know
Oh my
where it
God.
was, but I've heard such great
It
things.
looks like a country club. It's like a certified botanical garden. It's beautiful.
Wow.
And they have a really amazing theater program. They have like one of the top 10 theater programs in the country.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I know, such a like a random thing.
In North Carolina.
Yeah, I know.
Like,
in North
where? It was so weird.
Carolina, literally. So, yeah, I went down there, and that's how I met Audrey, who is the co-host of the podcast that I have. And yeah, I was performing all 4 years there, and then the pandemic happened. Then the pandemic happened. At the beginning of 2019, fall of 2019, I fell into a really like bad depressive episode and I had to leave school. And then I came back to school for spring and like 3 weeks later, everything shut down for the
Oh my
pandemic.
God.
Yeah. And the pandemic has just really changed the theater industry.
Yes.
Like I feel like things are just kind of starting to get back, but still they're not like fully back to how they used to be. And I think, going through a hard time mentally and the pandemic and just kind of losing out on some years of college, I started questioning if theater was what I really wanted. I think with theater, you have to sacrifice a lot.
Yeah.
And it's very much like the show must go on mentality. Like you have to be giving 1,010% or you're not good enough. If you want anything else, you're not good enough. Like I remember an acting teacher, like first day of class, she was like, if you think about anything else or want to do anything else, like I'll walk you down to the business school. And so it like
Oh my
scares you
God.
shitless. Like I'm like, okay, like all eyes on the prize on being on Broadway. And I think that did a massive like injustice for me, like a massive disservice because I based so much of my worth and value on like getting jobs, how my voice sounded, like all of these different things. And I got sick of it and it was draining and the rejection was exhausting. And so last fall of 2021, I decided to take a like indefinite break. And that kind of leads me to here where I kind of felt at my last performance job that I may want to take a break. And so I'd always loved podcasts and social media, but was always like too afraid to get into it, but also never had time at school. So I came to Audrey and was like, what do you think about starting a podcast? And we took a lot of time creating it and then we launched it. And it's just given me a whole new jolt of creative life. And I'm also a social media intern at a marketing agency. So that's kind of where I'm at now.
That's amazing. So timeline wise,
Yeah.
when did the podcast start?
The podcast we launched in March of 2022.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so just over a year now.
Oh my gosh. And you guys have done amazing.
Oh, thank you.
Amazing.
I think when we launched, I was like, we need to use TikTok.
Yeah.
I was the hugest TikTok hater for so long because I was not doing well mentally. So I was like, I cannot put myself on another social media app where I'll lay in bed longer. So I didn't get on TikTok until like November of 2021. And I started like by posting a bunch of like theater content.
Yeah.
So cringy looking back at it. I'm like, oh my God. And then I was like, no, I don't want to make theater like my identity anymore. And so I have like my own channel, but I was like, I really wanted to invest in the podcast TikTok because I was like, look at all these people. They're getting like things because they have followers on TikTok. They have people, I think what's special about the app is that unlike any other social media app, like people who don't know you can see you.
The discoverability of the algorithm is uncanny, and that is bleeding into not only other social platforms but into search, into like the way Spotify is redoing like every digital world is now relooking at how they structure their like user experience because of TikTok.
Yeah, which is honestly like a blessing. And so I think what really helped us kind of jolt a little bit was that we got, a TikTok following at the beginning, and it was not a huge one, but like it was enough to get to grab people's attention. And so Yeah, it's just been such an amazing ride. I love podcasting, truly.
How did you so were you and Audrey connected before, like, the podcast, or did you, like, reconnect before the podcast? How did that relationship
Yeah.
go?
So Audrey and I met in college, and
Mhm.
honestly, we weren't really that close until the pandemic because, our theater program was really strict. And so when we came back to school our senior year, we only hung out in pods, which were like your small friend group, like the only
Yeah.
people that you really saw.
Yeah.
And so she was a part of that pod. And even when we were in that situation, like we were close, but not like super duper close. And then when I had this idea to start a podcast, I was sort of like thinking about the people in my life and who I thought like aesthetically was like me, who I thought I could like sit down and have conversations with. And I was like, I think Audrey and I would like do this really well. And then obviously through this podcast, we've gotten like extremely close.
That's amazing. That's a big commitment too.
Yeah.
Being so social, like, I have considered, like, getting a co-host
Yeah.
after all this time, which would be a huge change, of course, for the podcast. And don't
Yeah.
worry, guys, like, if there was something actually happening, like, I would let you know. These are just my, internal thoughts at late at
Yeah.
night. But I've thought about it, like, who would I bring on? But that's literally, I mean, that, you know what? You were asking about marriage on the last one.
Yeah.
You're basically married.
No, it is. It's hard. Like I'm not going to say it's 100% easy, especially when this person is your friend and now
Yeah.
you're technically in this business situation together. It is such, communication is so important. Not kind of listening to each other is so important, and being able to be like, oh, like you're having a hard time, like let me pick up the slack here. I think when I was thinking about like starting a podcast, I love to talk, but I was like, I didn't know if I would have enough to say on my own.
Oh, so, like, solo episodes are great. It's one of our, like, top listened as well.
Yeah.
It's a different kind of episode, dude. Like, that's why I bring on
Mhm.
so many guests, is because I just do so much better with humans. I just
Yeah.
do so much better with humans.
Yeah, and so I was like, "Oh, I feel like it'd be," and especially at the time, I feel like every podcast I was currently listening to was like a duo.
Mhm.
So I was like, "Okay, like let's do this." And it's taken time to like get to where we are today, and like, I feel like it's a skill that you learn over time, still learning all the
Yeah.
time. I feel like I'm always like, "How do you interview people?" Like
Yeah.
that's my whole thing. But yeah, that's kind of how we got here.
Yeah. Do you mind if I ask you, like, some logistics on, like, starting the
Yeah,
podcast? It's like such
please.
something that I feel like there's just still not, surprisingly, like, a ton of content
Yeah,
about
yeah,
the
please.
logistics. So starting the podcast, how did you go about your branding? Your branding is so strong. And
Thank
this
you.
is such a selfish episode, because I'm so
No,
going to be asking questions,
please.
like, for me. But yeah, how did you guys approach your branding? And then how do you continue that through,
Yeah.
I mean, yes, I have more specific questions
Yeah,
when I ask, but
please.
yeah.
Yeah, so our logo came from a digital designer. Her name on Instagram is Designs by Alette.
Mm.
And so like when Audrey and I first came together and we're like, okay, we're going to do this. We spent a little bit more time than we thought because of the Omicron outbreak in New York, and we both ended up getting sick on like opposite ends of it.
Yeah.
But we ended up spending about like 5 to 6 months actually developing the podcast, kind of like small steps.
Wow.
Yeah. So like because it was this, we wanted it to be something. And so I think every single week we met once a week and we spent like an hour or two just like kind of brainstorming and researching what equipment do we need, how are we going to have a podcast cover, all these different things. And so when it came to our branding, neither of us are digital designers, so we were like, we need to outsource this. We don't have a ton of money, but like let's see what we can do. And we did a bunch of research on Instagram, and we came by Alette's Instagram, and she was in our price range. And so, we communicated with her, and that's how we got like our podcast cover and our main logo
Yeah.
and our secondary logo. And so, luckily, like those things were, you can input them into Canva and you get like all the colors and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And so she really did that like initial work. She also did like our little CFC cell phone that you'll like see.
So cute.
It's so cute. But everything else, as far as like our Instagram, is us.
Yeah.
And so with that, I think again, something why I feel Audrey and I work very well is because we're so similar aesthetically.
Yeah.
We know what we like aesthetic wise, like clothes wise, and that's how we put those things together. And I really credit Audrey. She is so detail oriented. Like we did our big like season 2 photo shoot for the
Yeah.
podcast last month, and she just thinks of things that like I would never think of, like flip phones. Like we got Tiger Beat
Oh
magazines.
my
Like
God, Tiger Beats.
I know she's on like Etsy, like
Yeah.
not Etsy, eBay, like
Yeah,
finding all
yeah.
this shit, and I'm like, I wouldn't have thought of that. So yeah, I think for us, it really came down to having this like very similar aesthetic and a very clear vision of what that aesthetic was.
Interesting. So you guys do Instagram. So okay, first of all, season 2.
Yeah.
So do you guys take breaks in between seasons or no?
So this is our like kind of, I mean, last year was our first year, so this is
Yeah.
all very new to us. We ended up taking like 3 breaks. We took 1 week off in the summer, 1 week off during Christmas time, and then now
I love that you consider a week a break. That's so great.
yeah,
That's
I
so
don't
great.
yeah, and
There's
then
totally I mean, I will say it took me like 2 I remember the first week that I missed an episode and
no, it's
I mean,
hard.
I thought I was gonna vomit, like,
Yeah.
and
I remember ours too. I was
yeah.
like this I'm like I remember like the first week that we came out with the episode like a day or 2 late, and I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh my god, oh my god."
It's a lot for
Yeah.
each of you.
Especially because I think a lot of the top podcasters, they preach consistency. And so I'm like, oh my God, like if we fall off this consistency, like will our audience come back to
Yeah.
us? Like I'd read articles that were like, make it to 50 episodes. We like just made it past 50. I'm like, oh, thank God.
Thank God. Thank God.
It would have
Yeah.
never ended. It would have ended. But
Yeah.
like, yeah, so we took like a week off in the summer, a week off at Christmas, and then we did take like a week off during season 1 and season 2. I think like looking back next year, like I think like I think we should have a little bit more time in between just to like give us some time to like, creatively like rest and give
Yeah.
yourself a jolting and also planning. We again, this is so new to us, but we kind of called our first year season 1, and now our second year is
Yeah.
season 2.
Yeah, we never did seasons. I'm so like it's I love hearing about process. I find it so interesting.
Yeah.
You wouldn't know why cuz I'm just fucking throw it at the wall and hope it fucking sticks. Like
I love
I
it.
love that you like really plan for like 5 months. I'm absolutely the kind of person where if once I have the idea,
You
oh
go for
God,
it.
I better start recording right then because I
Yeah.
will not like I just got to keep doing it.
Yeah, I think Audrey and I, we honestly talked about this in a recent episode. I think we both are so process oriented, sometimes to our detriment. Like, I think
Yeah.
with theater, also, it's all about the process.
Yeah, because basically, like you're prepping, and then you have a performance. Like how long? Like
Yeah, like,
yeah,
and
exactly.
it's usually always like about the audition. It's always about the process. And then
Yes.
very, like, far and few between, you get to have the product. And so I
Yeah.
think
Oh,
something,
fascinating. I've literally
yeah.
never really thought about that.
Yeah. I mean, that's what my whole college experience was
Yeah.
process. And then I was finally ready to do the product, and unfortunately wasn't really given that much of an opportunity for other reasons and because of the pandemic. But I think, yeah, Audrey and I, sometimes we get stuck in the process
Yeah.
because we're afraid of what the product may be or what may happen. And so I think, that was half of the reason it took long. And then also I think it was just kind of like small steps because we had just gotten out of college. We're figuring out what the fuck we want to do. How serious do we want this to be? But I think this is the best thing we could have done for ourselves because it's given something that we're in creative control of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. For have you seen this is like a kind of a side I'm kind of gonna geek out a little bit. Have you
Yeah.
seen like the AI generated like images and stuff?
Of what?
So like and the reason I bring this up is because when you were talking about like designing the cover art,
Yeah.
again, I always think of like keeping things like attainable.
Yeah.
And something that I wish I had. Part of me is kind of glad I didn't, but I've been like messing around with it's called Mid Journey. Of course,
Mm.
there's Chat GPT and there's like Bard and like all these new AI things coming out.
Yeah.
Mid Journey it's actually in Discord.
Okay.
And so it's literally so cool. If anybody wants to like Google it or like
Ooh.
look at it, I just got my mom on it. And you know when you get your parents on like a new app, like you
Yeah.
literally get them on TikTok and then they can't stop. She can't stop. Like,
Oh my
and
God.
you just type in. I'll give her as an example because I was like, Mom, like, what do you want to see? What do you want to create? And she said, I want to see an Irish dancer
Oh my
on
God.
a hillside at the sunset in a red dress. And you just type that in and it makes it. And so I started like looking at things and I'm really into like vintage beach posters and
Okay,
like vintage
cool.
beach aesthetic. Hence why I'm asking about like your branding. Because I'm like, well, I might want another rebrand. But I was looking and I asked for like a vintage beach poster. I wanted it wide angle, and you can have like you can say realistic, you can say anime style, you can say cartoon, you can say Pixar style. Like my dad, he's an architect, and so he wanted to see the Disney castle as if it was designed by, it was like HR somebody, and somebody's gonna know that name and like yell at me. But like a really gothic
Yeah.
architectural designer, or I think, or really gothic artist, I think actually, not really sure. And so we saw, like, it made the Disney castle, and makes like different versions. But if anybody is like wanting to like look at branding, or even create, you can literally create a podcast cover and
Yeah.
say, this size image, I want it to look like this, and you can just keep putting in prompts.
That's
um
so cool.
yeah, of course, that goes into the whole like AI generated art, and is that art or whatever, but it is I think a really good starting point.
Yeah.
I could totally show it to you after this, because it's
Yeah.
so fun.
I know, I've heard a bunch about, like, about AI. I
Yeah.
haven't really gotten into it. It's so funny, like, every time I open my Notion, it, like, gives me something about it.
Notion AI, oh my
Yeah.
god, it's literally in everything now. Snapchat has AI, and,
Oh my god, I gotta get on
oh,
this.
yeah, it's like a huge thing. That's total side conversation.
Yeah.
But back to your Instagram. Your Instagram is literally so good.
Oh, thank you.
And so, like, how often do you do photo shoots? How often are you relying on, like, graphics? Like, let's get
Yeah.
into the logistics here.
Yeah, I'm honestly going to be 100% honest, I'm winging it most of the time.
No, that
Like,
is so helpful to hear, and
yes.
my self-esteem really thanks you.
Winging it. Like, I work at a social media marketing agency, and, like, they have, like, they're planning what
Yeah.
things look like. Like, when I post a new Instagram, like, I honestly, I go on the Tezza app, and you
I
can,
love Tezza,
yeah, and you can,
yes.
like, put your feed on there. And so then I'm just kind of looking, okay, like, does this make sense? Does it, like, look
So you're
good?
very aesthetics.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the
Gosh, love
colors and
that.
stuff like that. I'm like, oh, like, would an image with words look good on it
Yeah,
here? Oh,
and it's nice to be in touch with the brand in that way as well.
yeah. I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, like, I'm posting this reel. I want it to be on the feed. Like, does it necessarily look amazing? No, but, like, this is what I
Yeah.
have to do. Um, I think at the beginning, Audrey and I were taking photos constantly.
Yeah.
If you don't know the app Lens Buddy, it is your best
I
friend.
love Lens
Love
Buddy.
it.
Oh my
Audrey introduced
god.
it to me. I will give her full on
Yeah,
credit
it
for
is
that.
literally I learned it from
Godsend.
MJ Hemmerman, MJ?
I don't think so.
MJ Hemmer, I don't now, when you see people, you're fans of them, and you only know their username, and then if you actually try to say
Say
it,
their name.
you're like, I don't fucking know.
I don't know your
She's
name.
like very like 90s
Oh,
nostalgia,
cool.
really fascinating. And she did a series on TikTok and that's how she got famous, was her tripod, like taking pictures by yourself, and how to
Oh,
take pictures
yeah.
by yourself. Anyway, that's where I learned it. But yeah,
No,
Lens Buddy is a lifesaver.
a lifesaver. And so that's what we started doing at first. Every time we would get together, we would batch TikToks, we would
You're
take
so
photos.
organized. Oh, it's nauseating.
Now, look,
I'm
look,
like
it has
amazed.
not been that way for a couple of months. Like, I have not been posting on our TikTok very regularly whatsoever. And I think, honestly, it's been hard because TikTok has really changed.
Yes.
In, like, it used to be like you can just post these trends 24/7 and, like, you can gain a following, but now people want more than that.
Yeah. Oh, I have, I work like my I'm a TikToker, and then my day job is also a
Yeah.
TikTok studio, and just insights on experimentation. Like, we have not seen trending sounds work on any account.
No, and that's the thing. It's like, and honestly, like, I'm over trending sounds
Yeah.
too, and that's been a hard thing about where we're at currently. I have been boggling my mind down for a while about, like, what to do with our TikTok, because yes, posting, videos from the podcast,
Yeah.
but for me, I'm not like an experienced computer video editor, so that can take a lot of time. And so, I put out content when I have it, but, back in the first 6 months, like, we were putting out videos every single day because all we had to do was mouth words to something and put
Yeah.
something relatable on the
Yeah.
screen. Now it's really different. And that's why I love long form content. But now I'm boggling my mind, like, how do I get people to the product of, the podcast? But yeah, it has not been as organized, but at the beginning it was, we would meet up, we would usually record, and then we would spend like 2 hours filming TikToks and taking pictures. So I have a lot of pictures from the beginning. And then, every now and then we do like professional photo shoots. And again, kind of like with using the studio, we kind of pick and choose when we think that's appropriate. And invest our money in that. And the thing is, it's like these season photo shoots that we do. We did one for season 1, and then we did it again with the same photographer for season 2. Like, we get so much content out of that.
Yeah.
Like, I have a friend of mine who is also a photographer. She takes my phone, my other camera, and she's getting all the behind the scenes content. And then we get all the photos from the photographer, and it just gives you so much content.
Yeah, I haven't done a photo shoot for the podcast in like a long time, and I'm planning my next one.
Yeah.
I'm literally planning a photo shoot for that Panera bag. I don't know if you saw.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, have you seen the Panera baguette? Baguette?
No. Oh, baguette? Like an actual baguette?
Like, it's
Of a bag? Oh my God.
Like, so is this collaboration they did, or this like release they did for New York Fashion Week. It is, I have to show you a picture. Why didn't I bring it? It's literally, it doesn't look like a baguette.
Yeah.
It can fit their baguette sandwiches. It's this long green, gorgeous green shoulder bag. It's so cute.
That is hysterical.
And I was begging. And they released like 500, and then they released 100. I didn't know about it until after the 500 release. So then I went to the 100 like piece release. Couldn't get one. Posted TikToks about it. I'm a Panera fiend. Like, I love Panera.
It.
My audience knows I love Panera.
Yes.
So I posted several times, and coincidentally, Panera has not really reciprocated that love, which to each their own, I guess. Come on, Panera, straight up. But do you know Delish? Like,
yes.
They a couple weeks ago posted a TikTok, tagged me in it, and it was them packing a box with the bag in it, and they put it. They had written a note, and it went into the camera, and they like placed a note in the box, and it was like, "Hey Sarah, I think you want this," and their caption tagged me and was like, "Hey, if you want it, DM us." And so they're so sweet. Like, I'm like, "What do you need? What do you? I'm your girl. I got it. I will do anything." So I got that. How did I get onto this tangent? How did I? Oh, literally. So I'm like doing a photo shoot for that.
Oh, great.
And then,
yeah.
My birthday's coming up. I say my birthday's coming up. It's June 10th. But like, to me, like, Geminis were like, it's warming up. Like, we can feel it in our hearts.
Birthday.
And so like planning a photo shoot for that. And I really think that I should be doing more photo shoots.
Yeah, and honestly, just taking photos like whenever you can. Like, if you're ever like, oh wait, I look really good today, just like taking photos.
Yeah. I have a hard time separating like my personal stuff with Attainable stuff, and so we're very graphics heavy, which I really like it. I have an assistant who helps me because I literally could not with my full-time job. And she's awesome, and so she's really taken over the Instagram, so we collaborate there, but it's mainly her. But we're very graphics heavy, and then of course like video heavy when we're posting. Thank God, like, we now do video content.
No, I love the video content. I think it's amazing, and that's why like I'm working on like learning better how to use like Final Cut Pro and like all these different things, because I genuinely enjoy like seeing the small clips on TikTok, and I think it's how you can get your podcast out there these days,
Would you recommend like, would you say, for like somebody like me, I'm totally asking like your like professional advice, would you say make a separate TikTok for your podcast?
Yeah, I think so.
Really?
I think so. I think it's nice. Like, now that I post a lot more on like my personal TikTok, I think it's nice to have the separation, because I think at first I was so personally invested in our podcasts, like TikTok. Like, if we're like, I'm like, why aren't we gaining like, I was so obsessed. And in recent months, I've kind of backed off of it. And I just think, I am a part of this podcast, but I'm also somebody on my own and have my own unique like things about me. And I think also it's like, when you think about it, like 2 accounts that you could possibly gain a lot of followers on, like even more leverage. And I do think it's kind of nice to like have your personal one, and then like a podcast one that's like filled a lot with more clips or things that are kind of directly related to the podcast.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Let's talk about naming. How did you? That's the hardest part of a podcast.
God, everyone's like, how did you guys come up with this?
Like, it feels so right, but I'm sure that there were iterations.
Oh yeah.
Have you guys ever changed your name since you started?
No.
Attainable was not always attainable.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a second. But like, how did you get your name?
Yeah. I mean, I think so actually we were kind of going to start the podcast as something that was theater related. I was like,
really?
Yeah. I was like, what if we interviewed people that got their BFA and sort of see what life path they went down? Because not everyone goes to Broadway or goes to do like sound production, whatever. And then, I think both of our parents, thank God they said this, were like, I think that's too niche. Like, why don't you open it up a little bit? And so, when we were thinking about what we want the podcast to be, I think we just kept coming back to this idea of like, what the fuck are we doing with our lives?
Yeah.
Like, what is happening? We don't like, for many, many years, we've wanted one thing. Now we're questioning that. And so, we start like, what the fuck are we doing? Like, like we just kept like kind of going down. And then we got on the word clueless. And then we thought about the movie Clueless. And we were like, oh my goodness, like what if we did a photo shoot? Again, always thinking about the photos.
Yeah, always thinking about the photos. No, I love hearing, because a lot of people like come from different like, are you thinking of the content first? Are you thinking of the title first? Are you thinking of the brand first? Are you thinking of the like short-term content first? Like it's very interesting to hear people's mental pathways and how they get to certain things. So no, that's good, like interesting.
Yeah, we linked the word clueless with the movie, and then we came to completely clueless, and we were like, okay, like we could do that. And then we were like, we feel like we need a curse word in there. So that's how we got completely fucking clueless. And but yeah, so much of like the name also came from this image of like the Clueless movie. Like if you look at our logo, there's like this little oval behind it, which is very similar to the Clueless in the movie. And yeah, so it was like this half like, okay, this is what we're going to be talking about. And then also like, this is what we want it to look like. And also we did this like really long, like branding form where we like really thought about like what our goals were, what the vision was, who our audience was going to be. And like, that was really helpful.
Oh my gosh, that's so organized. That is crazy.
Yeah, again, very process people.
Very process people. I love that. I know who I'm gonna call when and I really got to stop myself, like, because I will run before I thought. And so
I'm like literally the opposite. Like I will think of every process, do every like thing that can help me because I get like so nervous to push myself out there.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, and thank God for Joseph. He something I love about him. He doesn't tell me no, which is great. He like I get an idea, and he's like, okay. And when I say I get an idea, like I'll sit him down and like, babe, okay, just hear me out. What if we sold the house? I know we kind of just got it, but like, what if we sold the house, like, and lived in like on an island? Like, I mean, just really think about like how they could like, and he's just like listening. He's like, okay, and he doesn't tell me no. But he really walks me through the process of
what it would be. Yeah,
when I do need to slow down, or when he thinks like he's like maybe we should think about something, like think a little bit more about this.
Yeah.
So when I was looking at changing the podcast name, that was one thing that I was kind of scared. I slowed myself down.
Yeah.
I was like, oh. Like, this is a big deal. And like, am I going to lose my audience? Like, whatever. They were super supportive.
Yeah.
Also, my audience was not that big. People who have been there since What Else podcast.
What else?
What else? I know. So there's the way I explain what it was, and then there's the real truth of where that name came from. So I say, I want to know what else is there. What else is there to the story?
Sure.
Tell me the story, and then what else is bullshit. Total bullshit. That was how I justified it. You know what it came from? You ever seen that little video before TikTok of this little boy? I want to know how old he is now. He's one of those like Charlie Bit My Finger like a long time ago.
Okay.
And it was he had a little grocery list, and he had this really thick Southern accent.
Okay.
He was making a list, and his mom was telling. He's like, "What do we need?" And his mom was like, "Strawberries." He goes, "Strawberries. What else?" Like that, and she goes, spaghetti stuff. He goes, skitty stuff. What else? And like me and my mom like had this obsession with that video. And so we used to anytime we say what else, we used to go, what else? And I was by the pool thinking that I am so clever, like trying to think of my podcast name. And we just kept saying that. I was like, what if it was like, what else podcast? Ran with it. I don't remember like how many episodes like we were in before I changed it to Attainable, which makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was like, I don't think this is resonating.
It's hard to come up with a name. And something else that if you are like starting a podcast that I recommend, Audrey and I like searched possible names like that we were thinking of on Spotify and
Oh,
Apple
yeah,
to
you
like
wanna go you
see,
wanna look.
like, oh, is anybody else like in, the same
Yeah.
area as
I think that
this?
there is, like, the Attainable podcast,
Hmm.
I think, because I see it when it comes up sometimes, but,
Yeah.
and
And also,
we're technically just Attainable podcast, but of
yeah.
course you'd put "the" in there, but yeah.
Yeah, and also, like, if something was, like, a little bit close, but, like, they hadn't posted in, like, years,
Yeah,
I
there's
was like,
that.
"Alright."
Yeah, it's like, whatever,
Yeah.
100%. So, with the podcast so you have a, job outside the podcast. Does
Yes.
Audrey as well?
Audrey, yes, she does, she's, like, temping right now.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So you guys, is this like a self-funded project?
It is.
Love
It
that.
is.
Yeah.
It is. Again, it's not cheap.
No, it's not.
Like, again, very privileged to have the support of my parents, so they've definitely come in and helped sometimes. But yeah, it is. It's a self-funded project that I hope one day
Yeah.
somebody will be paying me
No,
to
I think that
do.
that's so a lot of this stuff, like a lot, especially with media and with anything that involves an audience, there's so much front end work
Yeah.
before like people look at these, larger podcasts or people that are making like a ton of money off of social, like blah 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 blah. And it really is like the tip of the iceberg, and then you don't see the underside of all the
Yeah.
years that go into it.
Yeah.
And so, but I want to, make sure people understand what's
No.
attainable and what they can do. Like, Attainable podcast is self-funded, like 100%.
Yeah.
We're not, we're almost 3 years in, and we're still not taking ads.
Yeah, no. I
It's
mean,
just
it's so
yeah,
expensive and it's, again, like it can look a certain way on social media and like, yeah, truthfully, honestly, like no ads, no none of that yet. And I pray one day like we can
yeah,
get there because I genuinely love this like art form. I think it's so cool and amazing. But yeah, as you said, I think a lot of the time if like I get down on myself about the podcast or like social media things, I think about the people that I look up to in this space and it took them years to
years.
get to where they
Yeah,
are. Like think of like Lauren Bostic is just like the best example ever because she's so open about spending years and years working on her blog, The Skinny Confidential, before it became something.
yeah.
Um
And you really have to love it before you'd make money off of it.
yeah,
Like, yeah.
yeah.
And so, I mean, like, you really got to love it. And then to some point, I think people get to this place where they have to ask themselves a question if they want to make money off of it. I think with
Yeah.
podcasts, it's a little bit less stress, but like sometimes making things a job, I've
Is
learned this
ooh, me too.
it's not the thing to do.
No, I've learned that from like my passion with
Yeah.
theater. When that turned into a job, it was very, very hard. And I'm still like recovering and trying to find my pathways in that because for so long it was this extracurricular. Audrey went to a performing arts like boarding school, high school, so she had been in that thick of it for a long time. But when I was in high school, it was my extracurricular activity. I was doing social studies and English and all that, stuff during the day, and then I got to release into theater in the night. And then when I went to college, like it became everything, and
Yeah.
that was really hard.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely what an identity change.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, that's identity change and identity issues is not talked about enough because it's
No.
really hard to explain.
It is. It's so weird, because I grew up in this like small town right outside of New York City and I was the big fish in the small pond. Like you're going to be on Broadway, like you are the most
Yeah.
talented person ever. Like and I did have some really great things happen to me as like a young performer. And then when I got to like Elon, now I'm not this big fish in the small pond. Like this is 80 of like some of the most talented people in this country. Um and when you are in a profession that like so much of like your money it's like based off of you
Yeah.
and honestly what you look like, especially in the entertainment industry, it became very, very tough.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's like a whole nother conversation.
Ooh, yeah.
But if somebody is right now like
Yeah.
kind of going through what you did, having to let go of a past identity and maybe is entering into a new one or not even sure what that may look like, what
Yeah.
advice would you give them?
I would say like it's okay to mourn this like past like version of yourself, and it also doesn't mean that that version of yourself is not a part of who you are right now. I think when people ask me about like theater and stuff like that, they're like, you're just gonna give up, and I'm like, no, like it's still a part of who I am. And who knows, maybe like 2 years down the road I'll want to get back into it. I'm just becoming like my adult version of myself. And so I think it's okay to sit there and mourn it and be really sad that this thing that you've loved for so long is disappointing you, because it is so hard when you've put everything into something and it has not turned out like the way that you've wanted it to. So I spent a lot of time just like, almost going through the stages of grief with it. And now, finally I've come back to this place where I'm finally starting to put my toe back in, having voice lessons for fun, going to see Broadway shows and not
so fun.
like hysterically breaking down, So like it's not like it's gone forever, but I do think taking that space, like if you feel it inside, sort of what you said earlier, like you're questioning it, like listen to that questioning, even if it's for 2 months, like it will give you something.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming on,
Of
guys. If
course.
you enjoyed this, please go listen to Completely Fucking Clueless, because it is a phenomenal podcast.
Oh, thank you so
Where
much.
else can they find you?
You can find me personally at Sarah Alice Liddy on Instagram and TikTok. And then for Completely Fucking Clueless, we're Completely Fucking Clueless on Instagram and Completely FCKING Clueless on TikTok and YouTube. Censoring.
Censoring. Way to go. Yeah. And I love, like, I feel you can say that so fast, like Completely Fucking Clueless. I can only imagine how many times you've had to say that.
Oh, so many times. I know it's like a little bit of a tongue twister, but when you're podcasting, like you get so into your intro and outro that like now it just comes like,
it just like rolls
like
off the tongue.
Nothing.
Yeah. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this podcast. Really, like, this setup is so cool. I'm so excited about it. Let me know what you think on YouTube. Go in the comments. Let us know what you thought about this podcast. Let us know what your favorite part was. Head over to our Instagram and go follow us on Instagram and share any of our little posts so we can grow our community. And we're trying our best on Reels. Trying Reels. Like, we're trying our best on socials, guys. Like, can you tell? Like, I'm like, let's work together.
I know.
I hope you guys love this episode. I hope that it was helpful, it was valuable, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.